Let's play some tabletop. Ever since starting this channel, we knew we'd want to do some tabletop wargaming at some point. This is that point, and classic Battletech is the game we've decided on. And to make it easier for people who've never played this themselves, we decided to take the opportunity and make this both a let's play and a proper introduction to the game. We'll give a quick rundown on the setting and its flavor, tell you a bit about the game itself, and then we'll set up a battle, sprinkle it with a bit of story, and go through the rules hands-on. Oh, and since we'll have everything set up already, we might as well finish that game afterwards. Let's dive right in. If you have never heard of this setting and its glorious combination of political shenanigans and giant battle robots, then let me take it from the top. Whilst I don't know what the actual inspirations were here, it's still easiest to roughly describe Battletech's flavor by putting it in relation to two other well-known franchises. Take Frank Herbert's Dune. Think of feuding feudal lords in space. Think of the importance of faster-than-light jump ships and the darkness of its future. There is a tabletop out there which shows us what would happen if we took the fantastical elements and turned them up to 11. You might have heard of that one. But funny enough, there's yet another sci-fi tabletop which took off in the opposite direction. They tuned out the fantastical elements, buckled down on the political struggles, on the way human nature eternally leads to conflicts, and on the portrayal of personal heroics in front of a background deeply rich in moral grace. Welcome to Battletech, and welcome to the Inner Sphere. I'm going to try and give this behemoth of a setting the briefest of rundowns I can manage. As with a lot of things, it all starts with a golden age. Humanity managed to invent the jump drive. They settled most of the star systems within easy reach, and the interstellar powers unite under the mantle of the Star League. Its seat is on good old Terra, and the royal house Cameron gets to watch over an assembly of other great houses. But this wouldn't be much of a story if that's where it ended. One extremely devastating civil war later, the Star League is shattered. Its rulers are no more, and its leftover military forces are lost in an exodus into deep space. So now we have 5 great houses, each with their own history and culture, each trying to become the new rulers of the entire Inner Sphere. This is where the succession wars start. And I do mean start. The story of the setting is deep. It is very roughly divided into a set of differing eras you can play in, and the Star League and the Succession Wars are only the first 2. The amount of what happened before, during and after these is enough to fill whole bookshelves. Which, by the way, it totally does. There have been countless novels written furthering the story and enriching the setting. To give you the barest of glimpses, the map we've been showing you so far is accurate to 3025, shortly before the start of the 4th Succession War. This is the map in 3052. The point being, things happen here. If you want more detail, there's both an excellent wiki and a series of YouTube history lessons that explain things far better than we could here. Also, those novels we mentioned are well worth a read. But we're here for gaming, so on to the tabletop itself. This game is a classic that has been around on and off since the 1980s, and its rules are robust and fun enough that they've endured to this day with only a couple of changes here and there. An impressive feat to be sure. While it is advertised as a game of armored combat, and you can keep it at that, Battletech really is a combined arms game. The giant battle mechs are really only the flashy poster boys. You're able to field anything, from squads of infantry over various vehicles like tanks and hovercraft, up to jets and even spaceships dropping in hot from orbit and spewing out troops onto the battlefield. Truly, the possibilities are staggering. Everything is set up on printed hex field maps and played out in turns. It is very sandbox-like in the sense that you can set up your own battles and objectives any way you like. Or you can play out pre-printed scenarios or campaigns. Units are represented by models and their stats are kept on separate sheets. I'm not going to go into the detail on the how to play just yet. We'll explain that in a moment as we begin playing. So let's just go ahead and set something up. Setting up a mostly balanced match is simple. There's something called battle value, and basically you can stack up units on either side, and if their battle values are close, the game should be somewhat balanced as well. At this point, we could just set up and smash mechs against each other like rock'em sock'em robots, but if you're given a setting like this, it's easy to let the creative juices flow and add just a little bit of lore and flavor to your games and turn what could be a bare numbers affair into a story ready to unfold on your table. And given that Green Player is the lore nut between the two of us, I've asked him to dive into the digital archives and turn up a fitting conflict for us to tackle. Take it away.
It has been 4 months now since someone noticed a strange series of apparent misjumps in the fringes of Curitan space. It took a while for higher-ups to figure out that those apparent misjumps were deliberately aimed. On an old star map there was a colony named Knudstad, thought to be long abandoned by now. But what if that colony was still active? And someone was arming them, putting a threat right at the unprotected backside of the Draconis Combine. From that point on, it wasn't long for the 4th Amphibian Light Assault Group to be uprooted from their home base and told to go onto a voyage to a planet that could safely be considered periphery. They were green and expendable, so either they would get some combat experience, or they'd at least soften the suspected threat up before the cavalry arrived. Knudstad was to immediately
yield to the dragon and submit to leadership of the Draconis Combine, or suffer the consequences.
And once the deadline to reply passed, consequences were suffered. Dropships descended in clouds of flame, spewing forth the loyal Curitan troops. The Knudstad forces were well equipped, but ill-trained, and so their tanks and few mechs one by one burst under focused firepower. However, infantry garrisoned in buildings and trenches were harder to get rid of, and on top of that, 2 remaining mech pilots decided that the best they could do was to save their irreplaceable hardware. In an attempt to regroup elsewhere, they managed to pull away from the battle unscathed. Orbital surveillance tracked the energy signature of the large machines and sent a Curitan strike lance after them. Well, most of it. The group's locus was to remain behind and help with infantry cleanup duty. And so it was that 3 lighter mechs caught up with 2 heavier ones, one side eager to prove their worth against dangerous adversaries, one side backed into a corner too slow to escape without a fight. And this is where our story begins.
Alright, so these are our combatants. I see you've given me a catapult and a thunderbolt.
Yeah, they are fairly common machines. They are kind of cheap for heavy machines. So it would make sense for someone, I'm not gonna say Steiner because that would be rude, to just arm a periphery state with these to just be a thorn in Draconis Combine's side. And the pursuing lance, or rather not quite lance, because point-wise these match up really well. I couldn't possibly fit in a 4th light machine, so I had to make do. I have a Jenner, a Blackjack and a Panther. All 3 are fairly well known and used by the Draconis Combine, especially the Jenner and the Panther. Blackjack is not all that rare either though, so that still makes sense. The Jenner is a very speedy machine, so it would make sense in a strike lance. The other 2 not so much, but they are both jump capable and long range, so they still kind of fit.
And we're going through rocky terrain anyways, so jump jets will be an asset.
Yeah, that was the idea. And since in Battletech it's not all about the machines but also about the pilots driving them, I came up with a few thematic names for my pilots. So, did you come up with any cool names for your pilots and backstories?
Names, you say?
And I'm kind of surprised you didn't paint these yet. I mean, after all, you even painted our dice tower.
Yeah, and I'm quite sad about that. I would have painted these, but I'm really spoiled for choice. There's so many different factions, and within those factions there's different units, and each of those has their own color schemes. I really didn't know what to paint these.
Yeah, but the color schemes of the units are really just only for parades. In the actual battlefield they usually go with camo, so why don't you paint them camo?
That's a good thought. I had that too, but then I would have to decide what kind of terrain I wanted the camo for, because they've got everything, up to and including purple mushroom forests.
Alright, so that kind of makes sense. I can get behind that. How are we going to tell them apart then?
With technology.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal. Battlefield surveillance online. Calculating topographical data.
Initiative is rolled with two six-sided dice. The player who loses the roll has to make the first move, giving the winner opportunity to react. Afterwards, they take alternating turns. In this case, Red has to start out. So yeah, I'm going to move the Thunderbolt first. Every turn is divided into phases. Initiative, which you just witnessed, movement, attack, heat, and end phase. We are now heading into the movement phase. So how does moving a mech work exactly? It's really quite simple. Every mech has a few different modes of movement. Most basic is walking. They can also run at full speed, which is 1.5 times their walking distance. You can see these written out on their mech sheets. There is also jumping, but not every mech can do that. The Thunderbolt certainly can't, so let's skip that for now. So why should you ever choose to go slower than as fast as possible? For one, you can backpedal whilst walking. Also, it's much easier to aim when you're not running at full speed, but more on that later. Once you've chosen your mode of movement, you are granted a number of movement points. Movement costs are additive. Entering a new hex always costs 1 point. Moving into terrain can cost you light woods, 1 point extra. Heavy woods, 2 points extra. Ascending or descending a level, 1 extra per level. Although mechs really can only manage 2 levels at once. Doing any of this backwards, 1 point extra. Apart from that, it also costs to turn your mech, 1 point per hex side change of facing. These are the bare basics. You can also stand still, drop to the ground, there's water, but honestly, the game has your back by providing a neat table for all of these costs, so clarification is always within arm's reach. And I'm just going to go with the flavor here, and since no adversaries have shown up yet, it'll just move along the dried out riverbed. These are half hexes, they don't count for anything. I'm going to run here because they try to make good time, and that gives me 6 points of movement. So 1, 2, 3, turn. Turn is 4, 5.
I'm going to move the Janna, and it's going to sneak up on you, so it's not going to be particularly speedy either. It's going to walk. It's got a walk of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And since its passive scanners show its activity from active scanners up ahead, it's going to stop here out of sight.
Only walk. 7. Alright, my big tin cans can only dream of that. And here for a helpful bit of in-game bookkeeping. After moving a mech, you place a die behind it to mark the movement type used. White die for walking, black for running, red for jumping. The facing isn't random either. The number denotes how much harder it is to target the mech due to its speed, as evident by the amount of hexes moved. It's specified in this table. For the Janna it was 6 hexes, which results in a 2. If it is too slow for the movement to matter, the die is turned to a 6, since dice don't have a 0, and mechs are usually too slow to ever need a proper 6. And now that that's explained, we can also put 1 behind the Thunderbolt. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1.
And now, for my second move, because I still have 2 models left, whereas you only have 1.
I only have the 1, yes.
2 is twice as much as 1, conveniently. So I have to go again until I have less than twice the amount of your models.
Yeah.
And for my second move, I'm going to use my jump jets because it's time to get fancy.
Right.
Since our advanced scout has reported a radar blip, Lieutenant Tiffany Hanamura is going to leap into the action using her jump jet to get behind some cover and get a proper ambush.
If a mech is equipped with jump jets, it can rocket boost itself through the air, skipping most of the terrain rules we established earlier. The math is much simpler here. Moving 1 hex simply uses 1 of your movement points. Also, you get to freely choose your mech's facing after you touch down at your target location. There are 2 downsides to moving this way. For one, it makes it really hard to aim. Second, it generates a lot of heat. 1 point per hex moved, but never less than a minimum of 3. We will get to talk about heat later. A lot. It is rather important.
She's going to move in here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Jump jets engaged.
And since rotation or elevation makes no difference, I can just put her like that.
It's my turn again. Lieutenant Madison already moved in, since that big hunking Thunderbolt is the advanced scout for my catapult, and he has reported movement.
Hostiles spotted.
So the catapult is also going to use its jump jets to move in, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3 and jump up to here. Also jump jetted 3.
Can I get a shot at the catapult without showing myself to the Thunderbolt? You're on height 3 over there, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm going to once more use my jump jets.
Yes.
And I'm going to jump 1, 2, 3, 4. And I do believe that this hill may be between me and him.
Yes, I don't think the Thunderbolt can see you there. This is a fancy, very high-tech measuring tool that's not included in Battletech.
Yeah, that's spot on through there.
Yeah.
So... Right, so that's movement done.
That's movement done.
Time to move on to the next part of gameplay, the attack phases. We would explain the shooting rules here, but so far the different units are still very far apart, and the periphery troops are hesitant to take their unlikely shots.
So yeah, shooting phase. I've done the math, done the calculations, and after some very careful deliberation and looking at my ammo storage, I don't think it's worth it to put in a shot here with the catapult. Only hit on 12s anyways.
The Curitans, on the other hand, are eager to take first blood, and soon shots ring out across the small gulch. But on the off chance that this hits, I'm going to try it. That's a 4, I missed. 2 AC2s. Wonderful. Looks like we'll explain the shooting rules next turn, when the shots have more of a chance to actually connect. Now would follow the physical attack phase, which means giant battle robots get to kick and punch, but with even the ranged weapons barely reaching, there's no way we can get a working example right now, so this too will have to wait for later. Which brings us to the heat phase, where we do bookkeeping on heat buildup, which is basically a resource you have to manage in this game. Let's bring up the table. Mechs are big fusion engines on legs with weapons attached to them, so almost everything they do generates heat points. Walking is a point, running is 2, jumping starts at 3 but can generate more depending on distance. The big cost factor though are weapons. Every weapon used adds points to the pile. But mechs are designed with that in mind, so they have a method to deal with it: heat sinks. These allow for heat dissipation with the simple math of 1 sink removes 1 point of heat at the end of your turn. There are also double heat sinks which remove 2, and any heat sink that is submerged underwater is twice as effective, but none of that is in play here, so never mind for now. It boils down to this: every turn you need to carefully consider how you move and which weapons to fire, and measure that against your heat sinks to decide if you can afford any build-up or need to cool down, leading to a lot of thoughts like this. It's a PPC. PPCs run very hot, that's 10 points of heat. And I jumped for 4, so I would actually be 1 over my heatsink capacity. In any case, if you have surplus heat at the end of your turn, you note that down. Mech can have up to 30 plus heat points stored up, but it starts to affect them from 5 point upwards. Oh look, another table. If you're overheating, you get slower, less precise, risk involuntarily shutting down and having to restart the mech, or even have your stored ammunition spontaneously explode whilst still stored in your mech, which you can imagine is a bad thing. So all in all, you can occasionally overdo it if you choose to, but at some point it'll probably cost you if you don't take it easy on your mech every now and then. Panther gets 1 heat from jumping and firing a PPC mid-air. Yeah, I've just walked and jump jetted, all well within heatsink capacity, otherwise these things would be useless. And we've reached the end phase, which is mainly a catch-all for cleanup and a few specialized rules which we won't be needing today. Also, this is where unconscious pilots can try to wake up, but we don't have anything to do here, so let's take things from the top for turn 2 and get to the real action. This time I win, so This time you win.
you have to go first with one of those.
Do have to go first. Tough is going to take up firing position just walking. 1, 2, 3. She's behind cover here.
Yeah.
And she's going to pummel you with those ACs. Okay, the Janna is going to run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that's I moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. 6 spaces gives me a +2.
The Thunderbolt is going to be walking. I'll just take 1 step forward.
Panther's going to jump again, because jumping is fun for the whole family. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't think it has line of sight to anything from there.
The Catapult is just going to walk. Going to turn for 1. And 2, 3 step into those woods. Giving myself the possibility to move wherever next turn, but just being in the woods for this turn.
What height is that?
That's still height 3, I think. Yes. But alright, let's go over to thinking and writing down what we want to shoot at.
Yes,
and this time, let's have a proper shooting phase.
Yeah.
Ah, finally. Attack phase. Although it still takes a bit of prepping, because all shooting happens at the same time. You can't just let one mech shoot after the other until they destroy an enemy and switch targets for the rest. You need to guess in advance how much focus fire will be needed. This also means that even if you destroy an enemy mech before its player got to roll the dice, that mech will technically already have fired and will still perform its attacks. So no crippling the other player before they ever had a turn. Both players will now sit back, think about what they want their mechs to do and note it down. Also, you can use whatever to do this. Make a note on your mech sheet, have an extra piece of paper to keep a combat log, or just scribble on the dry erase board for easy cleanup.
Right, Panther shooting the PPC at the Thunderbolt.
Shooting, like a lot of Battletech's rules, seems complicated at first, but after doing it just a handful of times, it begins to feel like second nature. The to-hit roll is done with 2 dice. You need to roll higher than your target number to score a hit. The tricky part is figuring out your target number. To do this, you always go through the same motions of finding and adding up the modifiers. Luckily, it really is just additive. A common acronym here is GATOR. Gunnery skill, attack modifier, target modifier, other, range. But the simplest way to actually explain this is to follow the path of your attack from your cockpit right into the target you hope to reduce to a puddle of slack. Begin with your pilot pushing the trigger. He's got a gunnery skill. That's a number you add in. Next is the mech he's sitting in. Did it walk, run, or jump? Also, is it currently cooking from too much heat? Those are modifiers. Add them in. Then there's the weapon you're attempting to fire. They've got a range band, from short, which is optimal, to medium, and long range, where they barely manage to be accurate enough to score a hit. One more modifier to the pile. Also, note that the modifiers for short, medium, and long range are always identical. Just the actual distances where they begin and end differ from weapon to weapon. Oh, whilst we're counting distance on our way to get to the enemy mech, is there any terrain in the way? Forests? Half hidden behind hills? You guessed it, that's a modifier. And finally, we've arrived at our target. Did it move? If so, then the modifier is already on the board. Handy. Add it in. Do the math, and if you've set it up like our example and arrive at a number that is 13 or higher, then no amount of luck will allow you to hit your target. So Find a better position and hope to arrive at something 2d6 can actually achieve. There. Now roll the dice and see who weeps. Oh, if you wanted to split your attack and fire some of your unused weapons at a different secondary target afterwards, remember that that too is now a modifier.
Panther shooting the PPC at the Thunderbolt.
Target acquired.
He jumped. He has a gunnery of 4, so that's 4 and 3, 7.
Yes.
He's at medium range, that's 9s, and there's light woods, that's 10s. So a 10 will hit, and a 4 will not.
That's not a 10. I don't think that's even close enough that you're burning up a few trees.
I don't know. Anyway, the lieutenant is going to keep her guns trained on the catapult, because catapults hurt no matter which way you turn it. So she's going to use both of her AC2s in order to hit it, which is, she walked, she's gunnery 4, so that's a 5. At medium range, that's a 7. And into light woods, that's an 8.
8 it is.
And that's 1 hit.
The 11 is a hit. So now you get to roll where you hit me.
And it's the 4. The 4 is...
Let's consult the table. Ah yes, more tables. Damaging a mech is pretty straightforward all in all, but it takes a little doing. The first step is to determine from which direction the attack came in. Front, left side, right side or rear, which changes up where a mech can be hit. This is necessary since mechs don't simply have HP. In fact, most of the mech sheet is dedicated to noting down any damage done to them. Their body is made up of head, 2 arms, left and right torso, center torso, legs and the rear sides of the torsi. Each of those parts is armored with a number of points. Once those are stripped off, the damage goes internal, which means it begins to damage the actual mech. Once the internal structure points are gone, the body part is destroyed. Which leads to several ways to finish a mech. Center torso gone, mech destroyed. Head blown off, that's it. Both legs blown off, well, they're not walking anywhere now. Also, arms drop off if the side they're attached to is blown off. But more than that, anything built into a destroyed part is also gone. Everything a mech brings onto the field has to go somewhere. Weapons, ammunition, heat sinks, a number of internal systems, and even the engine driving them. And finally, we need to talk about critical hits. They don't happen whilst aiming, but they can happen here. Rolling a 2 for the hit location has a chance to crit into the center torso, or CT as it is usually called, regardless of how well armored the mech still is. Also, any damage to internal structure has a chance to score a critical hit, which leads to another table. With luck you can score up to 3 crits on 1 hit, each of which destroys something built into the targeted location. You find that out by finding the correct table and crossing off the part that is now missing. If that part was already gone, keep re-rolling until something is hit. Let's see it play out.
And it's the 4.
That's the right arm.
It is. So, one missile pod has a tiny little dent in it.
That was what kind of weapon again?
That's an AC2 dealing 2 points of damage.
Alright.
Is it destroyed yet?
I'm going to hope you're not too sad if I say no. Yeah, I very much think the Jenna is not within range of anything.
It's also out of line of sight.
Yeah,
Hiding behind the height tree.
that's what I meant. Can't shoot around those hills. And whilst we're talking about line of sight, It is measured center to center between attacker and target. But how do you count terrain modifiers and visibility if the line of sight runs along 2 hexes? Well, that's exactly what's happening along the Thunderbolt's line of sight towards the Panther. I don't think I'm shooting at you from this part, but more from this part, am I? That's for you to decide.
That is Defender's choice indeed. And indeed, I get to decide that you can shoot from here because that would completely invalidate your attack. Because
so I can't shoot at all.
No, because this is exactly the line, so it's
Yeah,
ambiguous, and I get to decide through which of these hexes you shoot in each case. So if I just decide you have to shoot through this height 3 and this level
Then
1,
you've
I'm
ducked.
just ducked behind there because my mech is slightly shimmying towards the cover here.
Yeah.
Remember that each of these hexes is supposed to be 30 meters wide, so the mech isn't 30 meters wide.
That's alright, so the Thunderbolt isn't going to shoot.
No.
The Catapult, on the other hand, very much does have a shot. It's got a gunnery skill of 4, it's walked, so that's a 1. The woods it's standing in don't count for it.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's still within the medium range for the LRM, the long range missiles. Well, it's in the name, long range. I would have had to go over a 14 for it not to be medium range anymore. So 5, 7. And you get a +1 because you're standing slightly behind cover. So I'm at 8 and you moved a bit. So 9 to hit. I'm firing 2 salvos of LRMs, both for 9s.
That's LRM 15s, isn't it?
LRM 15s, but the number of missiles only makes a difference if I actually hit you.
Yeah.
And that's very
Hits.
much 1 hit. This is nothing.
Yeah.
And there's no crit here. You can crit if you roll for the hit locations, but not on aiming the shot. I just have a normal hit here.
So how many of those missiles actually impact? Because you
I've-
spray the general area.
Yeah, I fire a cluster. Let's see how precise that cluster was. That can go up from 5 hits up to all 15 missiles hitting. 7, that's somewhere nicely in the middle. That's 9 hits.
9 hits in clusters of 5. So 1 4 and 1 5.
Incidentally, where do I see how those are clustered? Oh, that's the C5 behind it, is it?
Correct.
Learned a thing. So that's 1 4 and 1 5 in the order I choose, or
In the order of your choosing, and generally it's heavily advised to always do higher damage counts first.
yeah. So where do the 5 missiles hit you? That's on the 7.
That's the CT.
That's the CT.
Second cluster.
Second cluster.
That's
9.
9. The 9 is the left leg.
And that's the 4.
Yep, that's 4 points of damage into the left leg.
So yeah, nothing major yet, but just putting in a little bit of damage to slightly better my chances once we go into full engage here.
Which will hopefully take a while yet.
Which concludes shooting. Again, no close quarter combat, and nothing much happening in terms of heat. Everyone stayed within their limits, only the Panther continues to slowly warm up. Now you know most of Battletech's rules for mech combat. There are a few more things to it, like melee, but that should have covered most of the basics.
The game is just getting interesting though. The Curitans have finally caught up to their escapees, periphery pilots are forced to turn and fight, and I for one am way too curious to see what will happen to Knutstad's military future to stop playing now.
And we're not about to just stop. we're going to slip more into the narrative and not focus on the play-by-play rule stuff as much anymore. Turn 3. Let's roll it again. Yeah, that's...
You go.
With the periphery forces having to move first, the positioning is cautious. Dan Madison maneuvering his Thunderbolt out of the riverbed and into some light woods. The Curitans don't go out of their way to provoke a head-on confrontation yet either, with the seasoned veteran in his Panther firing up the jump jets and touching down into the thick cover of some heavy woods sitting at the river's edge. Lieutenant Hanamura cautiously pushes forward onto the hills in front of her, aiming to overlook the whole valley and getting a beat onto the Thunderbolt's forward position.
Going up this ledge, that's 1, 2, into this light wood, 3, 4.
That's when Ann Thompkins' catapult fires up the jump jets. Jump jet, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, someone's getting aggressive. Why is there a catapult in my face? Get it out, get it out!
I just looked over the map and thought, level 3 light woods, that's the best spot I'll get for the LRM boat. And if the periphery suddenly goes on the offensive, the Curitans can't just let that sit unanswered.
So now that I know where your catapult has ended up and has basically just charged me with reckless disregard for its own safety or its lance mates, I'm going to turn up the throttle on the Jenner and run. Run like the wind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces moved. 8 spaces gives me a modifier of +3. Thank you very much. Also, I'm behind you.
Are you in my rear though? I think you're in my side.
I am in your side, but you can't shoot at me.
Can't torso twist?
Well, you can torso twist if you like, but then you can't shoot the Panther.
Yeah. Alright, I can only shoot one mech. I'll be able to live with that, I hope.
We'll see about that, because I very much hope you don't live to regret that mistake. Yes. Also, the catapult cannot shoot at me, even with torso twisting.
Not at the Jenner.
No. So that's that. Movement's done.
The plan of the attackers is simple.
So, I've decided to fire everything my mechs have, with the exception of the Panther's SRM-4 at the Thunderbolt.
Lieutenant Madison, please stay on your feet. The Panther gets to open the fireworks.
So I need an 8. That's not an 8.
With less than impressive results. So it's at the Lance Commander in her Blackjack to set an example.
Go with the higher damaging weapons first, so I'm going to use the medium lasers. And I have 4 of them.
Alright,
4
another
lasers.
8.
4 lasers for 8. All hits.
All of the hits.
All of the hits.
Who's the guy in the Blackjack again?
That's my lieutenant, Tiffany Hanamura.
Alright.
Showing them how it's done. And then my 2 ACs hit on a 6 because that's short range. So, that's another 2 hits.
Right.
Right. The medium lasers. Hit location. I see a headshot.
Yeah, I see a cockpit shot. Does that mean I get to roll anything later on?
Yes, you will lose 1 health on your pilot because cockpit shake. violently. And you will have to stay conscious on a 3+ at the end of the turn.
And that's already enough to make the mech tumble at the end of the shooting phase.
Yes, because 20 damage and up makes the mech tumble. 2 hit locations for the AC2s. That's a 6 and a 10. The 10 is another arm shot, left arm.
Yeah.
And the 6 is the right torso. That was the good lieutenant hitting with every single one of her weapons. Let's see if Kowalski can repeat that feat. So he's got a armament of 4 medium lasers.
I think they're in short range. I might be mistaken, but...
They are in point blank, which is basically short range, except he jumps onto your cockpit. Gunnery 4, he ran, that makes a 6. Woods makes a 7. That's a miss. That's a miss.
Another miss.
That's a miss.
And that's very much a hit.
And that's a hit. Yeah. That's not as glorious as I hoped it would be. That's an 8. That's the left torso.
Fairly evenly stripped the armor from the top. Probably starting removing it from the top and then going down to the bottom. My turn.
Your turn. Return fire, please.
I'll start with the Thunderbolt, trying to return fire at the Jenner.
So he's going to twist his torso, so he's...
Yes, I'm going to torso twist, so I'm looking to the side.
Right?
Because mechs can do that. And I'm going to be firing a large laser and 2 medium lasers. The black is the large. And let's see, that's 8 on all of these. So I see 1, 8, and another one, 9, 8. And 1 medium laser goes wide.
So, 2 hits.
2 hits. Going with the large laser first for 8 damage.
That's
Cockpit
the
shot.
It used to have 7 points of armor.
So I hit through the armor.
Yeah, you just blasted the cockpit wide open. Can you give me a critical roll, because you destroyed 1 point of internal structure?
Yeah, this is our first critical roll whenever you punch through the armor. Let's see if it is a critical hit. And it is.
That's a 9. That's 1 critical hit. Roll a d6, please.
2.
Sensors. Destroyed.
What does that do?
Sensors. When a mech takes a critical hit to its sensors,
Sensors damaged.
add a +2 modifier to the 2-hit number every time the mech fires its weapons.
Targeting impaired.
A second sensor hit makes it impossible for the mech to fire its weapons. Critical hits to sensors do not affect physical attacks or other electronic equipment mounted on the unit, which we don't have because we're in the Stone Age. So, yeah. +2 on everything to hit. Now I know why he missed most of his everything. It's because half his cockpit is missing.
That could be distracting. Also, I got a hit with the medium laser. I don't want to forget that. That's a much more tame 9 though, so...
It's a much more tame 9, that's the left leg.
Yeah.
Leg the lights.
Even if the catapult misses everything, I won't be sad about this shooting phase.
What's the catapult doing?
Yeah, speaking of the catapult missing everything, it just aims its 2 LRM launchers over at the Blackjack. It's got a piloting, a gunnery skill of 4 plus 3 because it jumped, so we're at 6s. That's just in short range though, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 is my minimum range, 7 is my short range. So I exactly hit that. And yeah, that's...
I am also standing in Lightwoods.
Yeah, that's +1 for the Lightwoods, so also 8s.
Also 8s.
That's why I said this will be the turn of 8s. And it ate one of those shots. Aha.
Yeah, you can stop now. Yeah, how many missiles, please?
How many missiles?
9, that should be...
That's
good.
12 hits.
12 hits, right.
So, 552.
552.
Target locked.
Right.
Let me just note that I used the ammo. So we've got 2 rolls to see if pilots go unconscious and 1 roll to see if a mech falls over. I can go first since the camera is pointing my way. So, does he stay conscious? He does. Does he fall over? So that's his piloting skill of 5 plus 1 because it gets harder if the test is made due to receiving this amount of concussions on your mech. So a 6. 8. Keeps standing.
Yes, perfect. Let me make the same roll, except for the falling over due to immense damage. If I fall over, it's going to be because my pilot lost consciousness. But he doesn't.
Yeah, that's not a snake eyes.
Scare of his life, but at least not falling face first into the puddle and drowning.
We're finally at the point where mechs get to brawl it out in close combat. Physical attacks are pretty much the same as ranged attacks, apart from a few tiny but important differences. For one, the piloting skill is used instead of gunnery. Furthermore, they have specific modifiers. Kicking is usually happening with a -2 bonus to hitting your target. Also, punching can only target the upper parts of a mech, kicking only the legs. And yes, that means we have special tables for this. You can also opt to push a mech. Charge them head on, or if you're feeling especially crazy, you can death from above them. Bring out your inner Italian plumber and try to jump onto the enemy. Damage depends on how heavy your mech is and how well suited they are to the maneuver you're attempting. The catapult with its missile pods isn't the best puncher, for example. But let's just see it play out.
Right, in that case, let me go kick you first. Because I don't like your mech and I want to get rid of its leg armor. So I have a piloting of 5, I ran, so that's 7. I have a
Light wood,
light wood, that's an 8.
but
That's
kicking is easier, or is it not on the Jenna?
It is. Kicking is a -2, so that's 6s. Right, 6s. Let's go. That's a 6.
That's a kick. Retaliation for the cockpit shot.
Retaliation for the cockpit shot, indeed.
Just happy that thing isn't too heavy.
No, it's not. That's 7 points of damage, and I believe, yes, if I kick you from the left side, it goes against your left leg.
That's very sensible. So 7 damage.
Yep.
I get to try and punch the Jenna, because I can only do that with the left arm. I deliberately didn't shoot the machine guns on those. So let me have a think. I walked 1 and you ran for 3. So that's 4 plus my piloting skill of 5. That's a 9 to hit. But it doesn't produce heat, so I might just as well. Barely misses.
Barely misses. Nice. A little bit too fast for that.
With this much shooting going on, mechs are finally starting to heat up. But everyone still stayed below level 5, and thus nobody is affected by it yet. Good, so again, get rid of the dice and next turn.
Next turn. Let's go.
Right, roll for initiative.
That's a 9 against a 12, so you win and I have to move first.
Yes.
And I will. I'm not sure where yet, but I will.
You can also keep standing.
I don't want to.
After the beating it took last turn, the Jenner's first order of business is to get distance between itself and the Thunderbolt.
I'm going to use the jump jets on my Jenner.
Most of the other mechs decide that this is the time to stay in place and take aim. With only the Panther also deciding to jump to new cover. Which leads to a snide assessment by Curitan High Command.
Well, you're in the 2 heavy mechs that stay in place, shoot, run out of ammo, die. Something like that.
I'll probably hit a few of those bullet points. Oh, also, this guy didn't move at all. So that's exactly the same marker. And by the rules, that's exactly the same marker, but I'm going to try and quickly come up with something else just to make it a bit more clear. I have something in mind. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. For peace amongst the franchises, I'm going to go with a token from Warhammer Kill Team. Now the weapons get to speak again. Or they would, but the Curitan Strike Lance is running into their first problems. What's happening?
What's happening is that the Jenner pilot is trying his damnedest to work to get his guns on the target, but it's hard to do without a targeting reticular or recoil compensators or computing ability
Or a windscreen.
So he actually cannot make the shot from where he's standing.
And the Panther at least he's consistent.
At least he's consistent. Consistently heating up his mech, trying his damnedest to make the easiest shot work. Wow,
That's going to come up in the performance review.
He's supposed to be the senior staff on the Lance. The hell are you doing?
Once again, it is up to Lieutenant Hanamura to make up for her subordinate's shortcomings.
Tiffany, go with your everything. No, not quite everything, because that could cook you. Medium lasers, 3 of them. Shoot at 7s, because 4 from gunnery, plus 2 from the range is 6, plus the woods is 7s.
Yeah.
Go! That's a miss, another miss, and a hit.
Yeah.
2 6s. Oh well. 6. That's the right crosser. Then the 2 ACs. Same game except short range, so 5s. Wow. One of them connects.
She's probably distracted by that PPC flying off into the horizon.
Probably. 11, that's the left arm. Yeah, left arm.
Oh, the one you've been consistently stripping.
Yeah, it's completely showered in pockmarks from those tiny bullets.
Still got a bit of armor left, but
Exactly.
it's getting less. Right, the Thunderbolt. This thing isn't easy to hit because it jumped, it stands in heavy woods, so he's just going to try and help the catapult with its work. Lieutenant Madison is going to target the blackjack up there. Black dice are the large laser. Large laser hits, everything hits. Right. We'll start with the large laser. Now the 2 medium lasers. 2.
2 is a CT, through armor critical. So that's the medium laser, right?
Yeah, that's the medium laser. Also, one of those on the CT, just normally, so you can already put 10 points on the CT.
Okay, that's an important safety tip. So, roll for criticals. Twice.
Alright, because I first went with the through armor and then with the other. That's more than 1 critical, is it?
Yes, that's 2.
That's 2. And another roll for criticals? That's nothing.
That's nothing.
So, 2 criticals on the CT.
Yep, please go.
I'll probably have to roll twice there.
Yep.
So, upper bracket.
Upper bracket, and
1.
1, that's a fusion engine hit.
Doesn't do anything yet, I think.
Oh, yes, it does. The first engine hit already bleeds heat like crazy.
And second critical, also upper bracket. 2.
That's the second fusion engine hit. Out of 3.
Anne Thompkins also keeps her missiles trained on the Blackjack, trying to remove the biggest threat from the battlefield.
Right, roll for it.
1 miss, 1 hit. And whilst she manages to rip more and more armor off of the battered mech, no more damage is done to the stripped center torso, and thus it keeps standing. If Lieutenant Hanamura can manage to keep on her feet, that is. But I think all in all that makes her do a piloting test.
Yes, yes.
Let's see if Tough can
Keep her machine upright.
She can.
That's a 10. Yeah, jeez. She hardly even noticed those blaring klaxons shouting about heat warnings and reactor shielding being molten down. So the Panther jumped for 4 spaces and once more adds 1 point of heat to his scale. So he now sits at a comfortable 3 heat.
The Thunderbolt fired exactly as much as his heat capacity allows, so he keeps the 1 heat he already had last turn.
Right. Tiffany sat at 4 heat and fired 2 AC2s for 1 heat each. That's up to 6, theoretically.
She also fired some medium lasers, didn't
She also fired 3 medium lasers. That's an additional 9 points of heat, so she's up to 15.
Yes.
She has 11 heat sinks, so she's down to 4 again.
Yeah.
And then she eats 10 points of heat from the cracked engine shielding, because each critical per engine hit adds a 5-point penalty of heat per turn. Oof. So she's suddenly finding herself at 14 heat points, needing to avoid a shutdown.
Shutdown imminent.
Which she manages, if barely.
Override engaged.
With their commander cooking in her own mech and one of them losing their targeting sensors, the situation seems dire for the attackers. But they are not ready to give up just yet, and set up for a final, desperate attempt at crippling the opposition enough to even out the fight again. Got an 8.
I've got a 7. She can't stay there and just wait for 10 turns to cool down somewhat until she can walk again.
Yeah.
So she's going to just grit her teeth, hope that nothing touches her life support unit, and use the jump jets.
Warning. Heat exceeding optimal range.
And whilst the periphery pilots still keep their positions, expecting the shootout to continue as before, the Curitans have little to lose and pounce.
No, screw it. I'm going to jump again. Jump jets, go! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello! How are you? If you're good, may I change that?
The Thunderbolt answers in turn, moving in on the ridge that previously served as the Blackjack's vantage point. But that prompts the Panther to stop playing hide and seek and try to turn the tide of battle with one daring all-out move. I think somebody's going to try and kick my cockpit off.
That's the plan, but we'll see if that works.
So the Panther gets to try again. But this time, it doesn't even bother with the PPC, instead launching a barrage of short-range missiles.
Well, that's a 7. That is a 7, that should be 2 missiles, I'm guessing? No, that's 3 missiles.
And each of them has their own hit location.
Yes.
Alright, that's what makes them so nasty.
That's what makes them so nasty. They produce just lots and lots of hit rolls that can get through armors.
Or do lots of crits if internals are already open.
Yep. So I'm trying to kill the legs now.
Well, changing your tactics.
Interesting plan. Now that everything else is pretty much stripped, go for the locations that still have armor.
Well, but you've got something far more insidious going on.
Yeah, real insidious. If only he had a working targeting computer.
And didn't jump right now.
So that's 3 medium lasers out of the Jenner into the catapult's rear side. I did the math, it's a 10.
Could be worse.
Yeah, by 2. And then I can't shoot anymore. That's not a 10. This is not a 10. And this is not a 10. I also can't kick you because you're higher than me.
And I can't punch because you don't have arms.
Because I don't have arms.
All in all, this weapon phase also didn't turn things back into the attacker's favor. They would need to hold steadfast through the defender's return fire and hope for the Panther to make a surgical strike in close combat, as soon as it comes to that. I'm going with the Thunderbolt first at the Panther, and I'm going to be shooting a lot because I'm not using the large laser and it's immense heat right now, because the main advantage on that thing is the range, and since you're sitting right next to me...
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to use 3 medium lasers, 1 SRM-2 and 2 machine guns.
Alright.
I did the math on everything, that's 7s.
That is 7s. You're quite right.
Alright, medium lasers.
Let's go.
They all hit.
They all hit. Pain.
SRM hits, and 2 machine guns. Those also hit. Everything hits.
Right. Let's go then. How many missiles?
1. Oh, I rolled 2 of these, don't I?
Yes, you do.
That betters my chances. 7.
Still 1.
I would think so. Yeah, still 1. I would have needed an 8 for 2. And that's alright. I'll start with the medium lasers.
Please.
Second one. Yeah, it's a through armor critical in the center torso, I think.
Yes, it is.
So that's
Criticals, please.
1.
That's 9, that's 1, yes.
Upper bracket,
Upper bracket,
1.
that's fusion engine hit. 5 heat per turn for you. That's
7.
7, that's the last of the CT armor gone and going
Internal
internal.
structure compromised.
7, that's no crit.
That's no crit.
Going on with the SRM.
Yes! Great!
7.
Lots of impact. 7 crits, please.
8, that is
That
1.
is a critical.
Upper
Upper
bracket.
1, reroll.
4.
4, that's a gyro.
You said those also weren't too great.
No, the mech is crippled.
Alright, let's keep going with the 2 machine guns.
Okay.
9, that's just somewhere. That's left leg.
Oh, so you can actually hit the Panther in locations other than the CT. That's the through armor, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's
What happens if you do it through armor on a location that doesn't have armor?
Well,
Nothing, right?
Well, the through armor gives you an additional critical roll.
So I get 2 critical rolls now.
Let me check that.
Check that.
Yes.
That never happened.
Yes, yes.
You know, usually I really screw up in games because I tend to roll snake eyes a lot, but
Not so bad now, is it?
that's a skill I didn't think would come in handy at some point.
So, roll twice. Go.
First one does a critical.
Go.
Lower bracket.
Lower bracket.
3.
3. That's the fusion engine hit. Second one.
So this thing is also going nuclear. And a potential other critical hit. 10.
10 is 2 criticals. You cannot not kill this mech. One's
Upper bracket.
So gyro or fusion engine?
2.
Fusion engine.
So that's
the third fusion engine hit.
in 1 salvo.
Target neutralized.
Second one, just for lower bracket and
6.
reroll,
3.
reroll,
2.
fusion engine. Okay.
So I really
So-
ended that fusion engine.
Yeah, that fusion engine doesn't exist anymore. You started stripping the backside of the shielding after destroying the internals.
So it's possible to see through the mech now where the engine was.
Yeah. And you destroyed the gyro, half of the gyro.
Because that was somewhere in the vicinity of the fusion engine, I guess. So yeah, that's a pilot that's going to punch out if he gets the chance to.
Ejecting.
So he's just sitting in the middle of the desert and has a long walk ahead of him.
If he manages to punch out, yes.
Might need to hitch a ride with the blackjack. He probably might be able to overtake it.
I'm just not sure if he can climb up of it because the outside is cooking.
And here is where we decided to call it. The Curitans beating a more or less organized retreat, and the Knudstad duo deciding against pursuit, choosing to make the best of their successful escape instead. Also, their commanders at the table felt that a proper conclusion had been reached. Good game.
Good game. So, what happened on the bigger scale after this? The Draconis Combine decided that it was simply not worth it to drag out the fighting any longer, especially in regions where Knudstad guerrilla forces had a home advantage. And there was still an undamaged catapult and thunderbolt to worry about, at least. The Curitans contented themselves with having glassed the local starport in their shock and awe maneuver and took back to space. Any and all files documenting how a Curitan strike force got their noses bloodied by some backwater farmers were also quietly lost amongst more important paperwork. Right, last bits of cleanup.
Yeah, this was different than the other games.
Certainly was. I mean, it was a stomp more than anything else.
Usually these are a lot more closer. We've had quite a few nail biters, and say quite a few, we've played like 5 or 6 games of this.
Yeah, but with a bit more luck on the PPC, I think it could have gone a lot differently.
Yeah, I think Dan Madison really earned himself a call sign, can opener or something. He's been hitting reactors, sensors and stuff like that left and right.
Mostly center.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite fun. A lot different than the computer games, which we've spent way too much time with.
Yeah, of course the Battletech game is quite a bit similar, but MechWarrior Online, MechWarrior 4 and stuff like that, quite different. Takes more reflexes. Also, when we play this next time, we'll probably include tanks, infantry, stuff like that. When we've played so far, we've had a guy who played this like since the 90s sit with us and help us a bit on the rules and everything. But I think we're done for now.
Yeah, until next time. This was fun, let's do it again.
Until next time.
Video feed cut.